protests against their religion.
Thank you. Supervisor Tavoloni.
Well, I appreciate Supervisor Buster doing the counter protest. As having been one who had their home picketed on a Sunday afternoon, just as my wife and I were falling asleep for a nap, well, it can be quite disconcerting, as Supervisor Buster said. But I see both sides. You know, literally, it was my wife who was most upset when this occurred, and was the one who called the police, and they were there within minutes. And unbeknownst to us, the City of Riverside does have an ordinance, and I think part of the ordinance, this ordinance was also modeled after the City of Riverside, including Palm Desert. And they did. I mean, they responded very quickly and dealt with the issue very quickly. And as public officials, you know, we're subject to that. We're going to be picketed here at the county building or picketed at community meetings that we go to. That's just part of the job that we do, and we have to get used to it. But the fact that the ordinance does call for a 300 feet distance in front of the house that is intended for picketing, I think it solves the issue and gives law enforcement the opportunity to do what they need to do. Now, what I've done, since I don't have dogs, I have one little cat, and she's getting old. Loving electronics the way I do, I have installed sensors on my front yard lawn, so when anybody crosses over the sensor, I have these huge loudspeakers that are hidden that these very mean barking dogs start coming through the loudspeakers. And then after that, if they don't go away, then a man with a very, very stern voice says, "This is the police. If you do not leave, you will be arrested." And that seems to work pretty well, but I tried that on my wife, and it didn't help. So, so those are other options that we have.
All right. Any other comments?
Just a question. If you're 300 feet away, then you're in front of somebody else's residence.
But you're not picketing them. You're picketing the people across the street.
I believe that the idea, conceptually at least, is there's usually an ability to tell who is being targeted, and that's why it's called targeted picketing. And it would be an obstruction and probably an obnoxious occurrence to those people 300 yards away, unquestionably.
So I think this has to be better drafted. I mean, we don't want to push this. If this is a problem, those that are being picketed, then it's going to be equally even greater problem for those residents 300 feet away in whatever direction who have this going on in front of their homes too. And how are they to know who is being targeted here?
Let me ask County Council, have you reviewed this, and is it constitutionally
Yes.
safe?
Yeah, the whole concept is it has to be reasonable as to time, place, and manner. And that's why these restrictions are put on the way they are. There are those that have been constitutionally tested. There's no telling for sure if a particular ordinance is looked at again, if it'll pass muster, but at this point, this is a compilation of what's already been tried and true through the Supreme Court. So it is something that I believe has the ability to stand constitutional muster.
What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to send this?
I think some speakers, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Al-Hadaf, do you want to address this item?
Yes, thank you very much, Supervisor Buster. I appreciate your comments. And what occurred here was a complete analysis of existing ordinances in cities and counties. So, for example, the County of San Diego and the City of San Diego have this ordinance. The City of Riverside has this ordinance, and the City of Palm Desert has this ordinance. And your questions were a good one about what you do. Interestingly enough, the most liberal circuit in the United States, the Ninth Circuit, has upheld this residential picketing ordinance as late as September of this year. And what they did is they had a three-pronged test. Three-pronged test was as a result of a prior United States Supreme Court case. These ordinances evolved over the last few years as a result of situations involving mostly physicians who would be picketed at their homes because they were performing certain operations that other people disagreed with. And County Council was correct. What the test is very simple, is that The Constitution does not require occupants to come in from their porches or decks, shut their windows or doors, and draw their shades in an effort to avoid targeted picketing activity. Occupants of residence are entitled to unencumbered enjoyment of the tranquility and privacy of their homes, perhaps a Sunday afternoon nap, without being subject to unwelcome speech, and the First Amendment may not trample
That's why I'm
those
concerned
rights.
about the people 300 feet away.
Yeah, let me go on. This
So
exact.
why don't we make it 300 feet away, and that it has to be outside a residential area or along a, no, I think you have to get it outside a residential area completely if you're going to.
Let me go on, because your 300 feet was the exact issue in the Ninth Circuit case, and it was 300, and the question was this 300 feet and what happens, and it was very simple. The ordinance has to be content neutral, which it is. It has to be narrowly tailored to serve a significant government interest, and there has to be open, ample alternative channels for communication. So the 300 feet has been tested both in the United States Supreme Court and in the Ninth Circuit as late as I said September. And it's targeted. I mean, it's pretty easy if you go out there, the police go out there and they ask somebody.
Then those courts haven't heard from the people 300 feet away, or there hasn't been vigorous demonstrations 300 feet away that people have complained about, but there will be.
But Supervisor, what I'm trying to say is this exact same language has been tested.
I don't doubt your thanks for fully explaining a legal explanation of that works, but I'm just, from a practical, political, and fairness standpoint, why should people 300 feet away be, disturbed in the ways that you outlined that the court's concerned about by chanting, by pickets, by hanging out in front of them on a Sunday afternoon?
I understand.
Are we just shifting the problem somewhere else?
I don't believe so. I believe that what would happen is it would be targeted picketing, and nobody wants to target. For example, if they want to target you, they're not going to certainly picket Mr. Wilson's home.
But then you're preventing picketing.
No, you're not.
If it has the effect, if the effect of it is that you don't have any picketing in residential areas, and you have an ordinance that in effect opens, which this does, to residential picketing in some form. Is that right? It has to be allowed in some form, but 300 feet away. It seems to me that you're either one or the other has happened. Either you inhibit picketing to such a degree that you take away the rights that the courts are trying to protect, or you're disturbing people 300 feet away as much or more than you're disturbing the people who they intend to picket.
And your argument, and I understand it, and the challenge is real simple. It's resolved on the basis of constitutional question, and the constitutional question comes down on the basis of First Amendment rights and the basis of a residential neighborhood being able to enjoy rights of privacy.
When I saw this, I said, why not allow it, but confine it to a narrow window, morning, 10 a.m. to noon, or 1 p.m. to 4.
Because
no chanting allowed. Only signs of a certain size that couldn't hit people. You can control all that, and then allow it where they want to be, in front of the resident, rather than disturb someone else out there.
Because that's already been declared unconstitutional by the Ninth Circuit and the United States Supreme Court. That's exactly what you cannot do. You cannot go into some neighborhood, whether it's 300 feet from any one of your homes,